Hello and welcome to Video Game Hangover. I'm Randy Dickinson and I'm in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Hello, I am DJ Ross. I am in Mountain View, California.
Each week on Video Game Hangover, we talk about the games that have been keeping us up at night. This week we're playing Live Alive and Strange Horticulture. Plus we're checking out the Steam Deck. The Steam Deck, it's here.
Ooh.
It's like Nerd Christmas.
Is that all it takes these days? Just one Steam Deck? I guess so.
Apparently.
I guess so.
Yep.
They are quite hard to find.
They are, yeah. And I get to lord it over other people. Look what I have that you do not.
Ooh.
Plus we're getting ready to attack our backlogs, as we occasionally do in the summertime.
There's Nerd Christmas. That's what I want.
Yes, yeah.
What can I say? I'm a fan of the Backlog Attack. Always glad to see it come around again every year.
Yeah. I like the Backlog Attack too. I feel like it's I need like a good 8 or 9 month long Backlog Attack.
I know. I mean, it started when we started this. It felt kind of exceptional, like actually taking some time out to carve some games out of our backlog. But now it just seems like a never-ending struggle.
Yeah. And we used to do it in the summer because traditionally, in the lifespan of our television show, of our podcast here, the summer used to be kind of a drought when it came to video game releases. There used to be a whole lot of nothing going on in the summertime if you were a gamer.
Yeah.
And that is not so much the case anymore.
I remember the early days of the old VGHangover TV show. We all go into that studio and sit in front of the cameras, all that. So glad we moved to a podcast.
Yeah. That's what all the great sort of artists are doing. They sort of shut down their television show, their successful watched by millions television show, and they do a podcast that like 6 people and my mom listen to.
Yeah, no, it's exactly what happened to us.
Yep, that's exactly it.
Just lost so many viewers.
Like Seinfeld. It's the whole Seinfeld thing right there.
Is that what happened to that guy? Is that why you never see him anymore?
Yeah.
Well,
but
now I have something to talk about the next time I run into Jerry Seinfeld.
No disrespect. I love our 6 listeners. Don't get me wrong. I appreciate the hell out of you guys. Yeah.
You're going to say no disrespect. I love Jerry Seinfeld. No, indifferent on Mr. Seinfeld.
Yeah. Every now and then I find myself in a hotel room and an old episode of Seinfeld will come on, like TNT or something like that, or TBS. Oh, those still are networks? I think so. And I'm like, oh, I get why this was a thing. I still find some of this quite funny.
Sure.
Yeah. Elaine was always the best part. And when I watch it now, Elaine is still the best part.
Yeah, I wasn't a huge Seinfeld fan back in the day.
No.
Yeah, I'm not. It hasn't been something I've been clamoring to. It's not in my TV backlog, I should say.
I had a bunch of friends over to watch the finale of Seinfeld, and we were all disappointed.
Yeah. I remember people talking about that, and they're talking about, it's been so great following the show for years and years and years, and this finale felt like a reward for everybody who had stuck it out. And really? I just thought, well, I never watched any of it, so it seems kind of pointless for me to tune into this.
Yeah, you're not entitled to a reward.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And since then, I've insisted on just picking up every form of media from episode 1 and tracing it all the way through to the end. That's exactly where I got that.
That was the birth of that. That's interesting.
This is not actually what happened, but I just noticed that parallel.
We have a lot to get to on this episode, and as much as I would love to talk about Seinfeld with you for the next hour,
moving on. What do we got on the list? We do have a lot of stuff.
We do have quite a bit. Today. So Backlog Attack.
Deck. That wasn't me. Oh, no, Backlog. Yeah, let's do that first. Yeah.
You want to do Backlog? You want to do Steam Deck?
Let's do both at the same time. How many
right,
Steam games are you attacking?
We'll just talk about it simultaneously. Yeah. No.
This is going to be, you need your headphones for this one. I'm going to be in the right channel.
Pan left, pan right. Exactly.
Should we just be doing that all the time? No, never mind. Okay, no more tangents.
Don't we post the show in mono, don't we?
That's true. That would be tough.
Yeah. I can't afford stereo. We're on a shoestring budget here at VG Hangover. We gotta, stick with mono.
Get you a second microphone. Okay, but seriously, Backlog Attack.
Backlog Attack. Yep. It's happening now. So what it is every summer, we try to find a little time to scrub some games out of our backlog. We are doing it in August this year. So as you're listening to this, you should start playing some old games. Dig through your stuff. Try to find 4 that you feel like you can sort of, attack over the next 4 weeks. DJ and I will be doing the same. Listen along. Monitor our progress. We would love for you to join us on Twitter, on Discord. Comment on our show posts at VGHangover.com to let us know what you're playing, where you're at. Track your progress. Show us game over screens. Well, what else? That's about it, right? Is that the stuff?
That's the basics. Yeah, all you have to do is come up with your list of what you plan to get through in the next 4 weeks, roughly. And then at the end of it, we will crown the winner of the most impressive feat of backloggery. Mm-hmm. And that person will walk away with the new release game of their choice.
Ooh.
Along the way, however, there will be special bonus points you can rack up by listening to the next 4 episodes of the show. Sorry, next 4, including this one. Just as a fun little extra. So to kick it off, I think we're starting real easy this week. All you need to do is just post up that list. So that is just a given. You need to do that anyway to be in the contest. So is that too easy? Should we make it more difficult?
No, I think that's just the right amount of community interaction.
Okay, that's good.
Yep.
Let's stick with that one
then. So those places again where you can do that, you can do it on Twitter. Make sure you at us at VG Hangover on Twitter. You can go to our Discord. We have a Backlog Attack channel set up where you can chat along with everybody, share your lists and stuff like that. Or like I said, go to VGHangover.com. That's our blog. And there will be a show post for this episode, and you can chime in there on the games that you're going to attack this summer.
Yes. One note about the website, and this is very embarrassing to me, is that we seem to be having some technical difficulties with it this week. So, fingers crossed there is a show post up there this Thursday when the show comes out. But in case that there's not, you can get in touch with us via those other methods that Randy mentioned. And I would say at this point, go to the website to find out what those were. But you can't do that if there's no website. Nope. So hopefully that's worked out by the time this comes out.
Yeah.
But if it's not, we may have to adjust the schedule a little bit.
We'll pivot, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll post a link to the Discord on Twitter. That's a good sort of backup plan. Twitter seldom goes down, at least until Elon Musk is running the show over there. Or you can email us, Randy at VGHangover.com, DJ at VGHangover.com if you want.
Yeah.
Still enjoy email. There's a few ways to do this thing.
Yeah, so rest assured, if the website is not functioning when you're trying to go there, there are other ways. We'll be checking those other channels as well.
Right.
So
I assure you, we have not gone out of business.
Oh, man. Okay, so
what's on your list, DJ? What are you attacking this summer?
What am I attacking? I do have a list somewhere. Here it is. Quite a weird list this year. I mean, my lists are always kind of weird, I feel like. I don't know. I try and pull some super weird stuff out of my backlog just because it's sizable at this point. But I feel like this year it all came together very neatly, but also in ways I did not expect. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I'll just get right to it. No more preamble. I'm starting off with Bayonetta 2.
Ooh.
The sequel to a game I did not particularly enjoy. But, Bayonetta's been in the news lately. Bayonetta 3 is finally coming out. I really enjoy the Bayonetta character in Vampire Survivors, so that has absolutely nothing to do with Bayonetta, like that type of game. But I thought, why not take another look at this series? I feel like maybe I was just approaching it in the wrong mindset when I played through Bayonetta 1. So, as it turns out, I already have a copy of Bayonetta 2, so that makes it very easy for me to go back and check out. So we'll be giving that a try.
Bayonetta 2, incidentally, on my backlog list, but will not be attempting to play it this summer. So,
oh man,
I'll live vicariously through you.
Well, We'll see what's on your list. Maybe we'll make a substitution. Should I just keep going? Should I do my whole list? Let's just go for it.
Yeah, do your whole list, and then I'll do my whole list.
Next up, I'm going to play Red Earth. This is an old Capcom fighting game. I mentioned on the music episode we had recently that Capcom just released this compilation of old 2D fighting games. This one, Red Earth, is notable, first of all, for being on this collection. But also, this collection is the first time that it's been out in English, I believe.
Oh.
Since whenever this came out, it was probably like 97, 98, around then. And I have never played it, so despite it being, kind of on the shorter side as far as video games go, being a fighting game, I thought this would be a good opportunity to get into it and try and figure out how it works. Because let me tell you, I popped into it for a few minutes when I got this collection just to see what the deal was, and I do not understand what was going on. Like, it seemed to diverge quite a bit from how fighting games, how I'm used to them working. So that'll be interesting. Next up, since it is the year of vampires, I am going to play Lunar Nights for the Nintendo DS. This is a Hideo Kojima game. It's in the same series as that Boktai game, the one with the sun sensor.
Oh, yeah.
Which I unfortunately never played the one with the actual sensor in it. And I think at this point in the series, they had just done away with it. Because they just, I don't know, people get tired of going outside or something. And I've always been curious about that series, so I figured, why not? In the year of vampires, that's all the excuse I need. And then finally, rounding this out, sort of along the same lines as Bayonetta 2, I'm giving another series a second look, because I feel like maybe it deserves a second chance. And you'll be thrilled to know that that is none other than The Frog Detective.
Ah.
I'm going to actually replay the first Frog Detective, just because, that sounds like something I would do. Mm-hmm. And then immediately go into Frog Detective 2, The Case of the Invisible Wizard, just to see what's going on with that series. Because similarly, maybe this is a stronger Bayonetta parallel than I expected. There have been murmurs that Frog Detective 3 could be on the horizon. The release date seems very much up in the air, but it feels like we may be closer to it happening than we were a few years ago.
Well, I didn't remember you and I enjoying Frog Detective so much that we wanted to play the sequel, but good, cool.
Yeah, I was kind of like, Frog Detective was all right.
Yeah.
Didn't feel a strong need to keep up with his adventures, but
here you are.
Why not? Yeah. Give it a try.
Excellent.
So that's my list. I feel like that is achievable over the next 4 weeks. There's a small hiccup, which is a new massive Final Fantasy patch is dropping right at the middle of all this. So that may throw a wrench into things. But I'm determined to get through all 4 of these over the next month.
Well, that is going to be a hell of a week for you, that 1 week.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I may not survive.
So my list, I mostly sort of, I made a big list of all the games that I have waiting for me on various platforms, and I kind of went through and started feeding them into how long to beat, trying to figure out like which of these are achievable. Mm-hmm. Because I had a ton of like just 100+ hour RPGs on there, and 1 game a week for 4 weeks is not the right way to sort of digest the entire Etrian Odyssey series.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Every Etrian Odyssey game in 1 month.
Immediately kind of discounted some of those. There's a Professor Layton game on there that I had never played, and it is surprisingly like 40 hours long. There's a couple of things on there that I was just sort of like, okay, I want to be able to achieve this, and I'm not great at finishing video games, so if I'm going to commit to this thing for 4 weeks, I want to see credits roll on 4 video games. Mm-hmm. I tried to find a bunch of games that were short enough to be digestible in the course of a week. So I landed on Paper Mario, the original Paper Mario, which I've never played. I like all the modern Paper Mario games.
Well, like the N64 one?
The N64 one, yeah.
What, you got an N64 sitting around?
I don't, but it's playable on that Nintendo Online thing.
Oh, amazing. I didn't know that.
On the Switch, yeah. So it actually came out last December.
Wait, and this
I'm
is
gonna play.
not 100 hours long?
It is not. No, it's I looked. It's the longest game on my list. It's like 15 hours long.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I feel like maybe I could sort of roll Paper Mario kind of at the end and just continue playing it into the future if I have to.
Sure.
Yeah. I also want to try to play the original Legend of Zelda,
Oh.
which I've never played. I had Skyward Sword on my list, which I've also not played, but
okay.
it's like 50 hours long.
Yeah,
so
that's a big one.
And like what Zelda experience can I have that is digestible in the course of a week? And man, that first Legend of Zelda is like 6 hours long.
Okay. That's your pledge, is get through that game in 6 hours?
Does that not seem reasonable to you?
I think, first time through it, you may be surprised.
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll see how it goes.
Depends how much time you spend on game facts looking for hints.
I'm not afraid of a walkthrough. So
okay.
I've played a lot of Zelda games. There's very few that I've not played, but I have somehow never played the first one. And I have this cool little Game & Watch thing that I bought last year that plays The Legend of Zelda on it. So I don't know how long I can stare at that tiny little screen, but we're going to give it a shot. Legend of Zelda, incidentally, is also playable on the Nintendo Online thing on the Switch. So if I feel like the Game & Watch is not going to do it for me, I may just play it on the Switch.
Yeah, I was going to say, you may just want to, I don't know, spend like half an hour with that Game & Watch thing and then switch over to the Switch.
Yeah, that's probably the way to go.
Well, that's cool. That's a surprise.
Yeah. Cave Story 3D.
Oh.
It's a game I've had for the 3DS for a very, very long time, and I've learned recently is worth quite a bit of money.
Oh, really? Okay.
So I want to play it and then sell it. So
you're gonna break the seal on it?
It's broken. I opened it a long time ago and never played it. Yeah, I know. But yeah, this is a game that a lot of people seem to really like. Seems to have been quite influential. It's a single person developer who put like 4 years of his life into making this thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's, I think a lot of other, modern video game developers look back at Cave Story as being kind of one of those first big kind of indie successes. And so yeah, I've never played it, so I want to give Cave Story 3D a try. With a shout out to Arcasa from our Discord for strongly encouraging me to play this one. And yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I played that 3 years ago. I'm curious to hear what you think.
Yeah, me too. And then last but not least is a more recent release, is a game called Raji, an Ancient Epic.
What?
This is an indie game that came out on the Switch a year or two ago. That takes place in India and deals with a lot of sort of Indian folklore and it's sort of interesting bits of Indian history wrapped up into some myth and stuff like that. It's a combat platformer kind of thing. It looked really cool. Never got around to playing it, and like a week ago, it was back. The definitive edition. A free patch for anybody who owned it before with all of these upgrades and changes and improvements. And I'm like, well, perfect timing. I'm going to play this game. So it's a bit of an outlier in that it's kind of a new game on a list of a bunch of old games, but I was super interested in it and never got around to playing it. So I'm going to check out Raji, and I'm going to learn how to say it properly. An Ancient Epic.
Oh, that's cool. I've never heard of that one.
Yeah.
There should be more games that take place. So it's in India?
India, yeah. I feel like there's not a lot of that in gaming.
No. Did one of the Uncharted games take place there? That spin-off, maybe?
I don't recall. I would have to do some Googling.
Okay.
Probably. Well. I mean, that seems likely, but I don't.
Yeah, I mean, it seems, inevitable that they've spent they had a layover in India at some point.
Nate killed some dudes and stole some stuff.
He's like, I just here to shoot a few guys and I gotta go off to China.
I'm gonna take all your gold and kill some people.
Yeah.
Yep. And the people of India were like, Tomb Raider was just here. She did just that.
Tomb Raider was here.
So that's my list. Cave Story 3D, Legend of Zelda, Paper Mario, and Raji, an Ancient Epic.
It's cool. That's some surprising stuff on that list.
Yeah. I generally don't go super old because I'm not good at old video games and I don't have a lot of patience for them. But I mean, really, how many more years of my life should go by before I play The Legend of Zelda?
That's true. Yeah, I feel like everybody should play that.
Yeah.
I went into that a few years ago, I think during Extra Life, and it holds up surprisingly well.
Ah, cool.
I mean, it's a little clunky because it's
Yeah.
a old Nintendo game, but yeah, I mean, it's still got a really great sense of adventure and discovery and all that. I'll save it for when you get to it, but
Cool.
looking forward to hearing about it.
Yeah, I think something that sort of we could talk about that particular week, but a series that has gone on for that long, it'll be interesting to see like how much of what I sort of associate kind of modern Zelda with sort of existed in that first game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might be a little bit like getting into Breath of the Wild, because you're just like, I don't know how this works. Need to figure out what all this stuff does.
Yeah. Cool. So yeah, we're gonna tear into where are you starting? Any idea where you're gonna start?
I think it might be Bayonetta. Do Bayonetta or Lunar Nights first. We'll see.
Cool. Probably gonna start with Cave Story.
All right.
Yeah, I've got my 3DS all charged up and ready to go. So
excellent.
Yeah, man, it's tough to look at that screen.
It's a tiny little screen.
It is a tiny little screen. All right, so come back next week. What else should we talk about? We should talk about the Steam Deck.
Yeah, what's going on with the Steam Deck?
I got one. It's kind of a cool toy.
Yeah. Oh, kind of.
Yeah, it's
not the. I thought it was Nerd Christmas. I thought it was the toy to end all other gaming toys.
I mean, it's cool because I ordered it a year ago. And like a week and a half ago, I got an email that sort of said, hey, it's your turn. You can do this thing. Come give us some money. Mm-hmm. And I had to like, seriously, like, do I need another device that plays video games? And apparently the answer is yes, because I gave them some money.
Sure.
And yeah, like a couple days later it came. I got a big fake out from FedEx saying, oh, it'll be here on Saturday. And I was like, yes, Saturday's the day. And then it didn't come until Monday. So I was like, for 48 hours, I was like,
oh, well, that
FedEx
ruined your whole weekend.
Yeah, it was just a mess. Like, what if the FedEx guy stole it? What if somebody's lying to me? I live in a city. What if somebody took it off my front porch and et cetera, et cetera. So yeah.
What if somebody jumped Gabe Newell while he was getting off the truck?
Maybe. I spent 2 days refreshing the FedEx website trying to figure out where my Steam Deck was, and it just rolled up on a Monday morning.
Oh, that's disappointing.
But it's cool. It's any cool toy, any new techie device is always fun, sort of cutting the wrapper and opening the box and taking out the quick start guide, which I immediately threw away. And the Steam Deck ships in its case, which is kind of interesting. It's a portable video game device that comes with a case. You don't have to spend extra money on one. So, and the case comes with like a security lock on the zipper that you have to cut with a pair of scissors to be able to access it. And I'm like, everything about this feels like it was built for an unboxing video. Like there's a whole like reveal. And it's huge. It's massive. It's like so much bigger than any portable device should really be. I've like heard two switches. Yeah.
2 switches. Ooh.
Yep.
I've seen it put side by side up with an Atari Lynx. I don't know if you ever had one of those things, but they're also quite large. Despite sporting a screen probably the same size or smaller than that 3DS screen. It's kind of comical.
Yeah. So it's cumbersome. It is quite a lot of a device for a thing that's supposed to like leave the house with me and be played on the bus and stuff like that. It's yeah. I don't know whose version of portable this is, but it doesn't sort of fit in with where I sort of feel like portable gaming is with the Switch or with the Switch Lite and stuff like that. It's this huge like paperweight of a toy.
Yeah.
And it has a lot of buttons. You have all your sticks and your face buttons and stuff like that, but it also has like 2 trackpads. It also has two triggers, and then it has sort of these interior triggers that you can do with like your pinky and ring finger. And I'm like, I hope there's not a game that uses all of these because that's too much.
That's what you want.
More buttons make the device better. Is that your thing?
Yeah, well, I mean, that way you can do your cool sniper moves in Call of Duty while you're still spinning the stick around or whatever, however that's supposed to work.
There's a free game you can download, and you don't have to have a Steam Deck to play it, but it's Aperture Desk Job. It's developed by Valve. It's basically a tutorial on how to use your Steam Deck set in the world of Aperture Science from Portal.
Yeah. I played this despite not having a Steam Deck myself.
Oh, that's funny. And there's stuff in it that sort of like gets you to use some of the buttons and some of the features and how to take a screenshot and stupid crap like that. But it's also quite funny. It's a very funny little game. It's like 35 minutes long. And you had to use those interior triggers for something. And I'm like, I can't. I'm old. I lack the dexterity to be able to be that person. So I don't know who that's for, but I'm not that guy.
Well, give it a few hours with, the next third-person shooter you play on there and see how the story goes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I've seen lots of people on the internet playing, Elden Ring and The Witcher and stuff on it. And I'm like, well, if I'm going to play a game like that, I'm just going to play it on a console where I know I can, like, put it in, turn it on, and it will just work.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been going through this list of Steam games that I bought over the last couple of years to try to sort of like what Steam Deck approved and what will run on this device. And it's not a lot, actually. There's most of the games I would say in my Steam library, and I don't have a lot of games in there. I'm not one of those like habitual collectors of Steam games. But I think I have like 60 games, and maybe a third of them are deck verified.
I like how, the Steam sales are just so enticing that you've bought 60 games despite not even having like a decent Steam platform to play it on.
Yeah. Yeah, just like someday maybe I'll own a nice computer and I can play all of these Steam games and then never play any of them. Yeah. Like a dummy.
But I mean, now you're all set, so it's great.
Yeah. If more and more of these games get verified, I can start playing some old indie games that I've bought on Steam over the years. Every Just Cause game, et cetera, yeah.
Oh, okay, now we're talking.
Yeah. So I've not put the Steam Deck through its paces with like a high definition, like big open world fighting game. I've been playing Strange Horticulture on it, which is a game where you run a spooky flower shop in Victorian England.
Oh.
It looks great on the Steam Deck, no doubt, but yeah, it's really not putting it through its paces. It's a cool opportunity to kind of get into some of the little bells and whistles of like adjusting frame rate and maximizing battery life by turning off anti-aliasing and stupid things like that only people worry about if you play video games on computers, I guess.
I mean, has that been a challenge since the battery is over?
The battery is brief. Yeah, it does not. And I don't think Strange Horticulture is necessarily testing what this device can do, and I feel like I'm constantly looking for a place to plug in my Steam Deck.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's kind of been the case with portables for the last few generations. I like the 3DS didn't have a great battery, and I feel like the Switch is not doing too much better.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I mean, the 3DS oddly was worse than the DS. And the Switch is not significantly better. And there's been various versions of the Switch over the years, and it seems to continue to not be any better than it was before. So, sort of within that 5-hour window. But I got to imagine if you're trying to play Elden Ring or something like that on this, you're not seeing 5 hours ever.
Mm-hmm. So again, you are playing Elden Ring on a portable, so hopefully that makes up for it.
Sure. The miracle of being able to sort of like take Elden Ring on a plane ride with you probably outdoes the fact that, you need to carry around a giant battery pack to be able to finish your flight.
It's like, oh, check out the size of that battery. That guy must be playing Elden Ring.
Yeah. He didn't bring any carry-on. It's just a battery.
Jeez.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I have a little bit of a buyer's remorse in that it's a very cool toy. But I'm not finding like a desire to play tons of games on it. I don't have a ton of games to play on it. I keep checking the Steam sales and things, and every now and then a game will pop up, and I'm like, well, that's on the Switch or that's on the PlayStation, and why would I not play it on one of those platforms? Why should I play it on this first?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out where this fits in my consumption of video games.
Yeah.
Which is also sort of like a bit of an admission that maybe I wasted $500.
Well, I mean, you gotta ease into it, I think. I mean, at least you have this avenue now. If something comes out. Like, what was that game you wanted to play last year? That Inscription.
Yeah. Yeah.
which you had to jump through a few hoops to play, if I remember correctly. Now you just have this thing you can load it up on.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, I have Googled a couple of times, like, what are the best, like, PC-only games, like, from 21 or 22 or and things like that. So, yeah, I keep looking for, like, a thing that, like, an experience I can't have anyplace else. And there's not a ton, really. And even Inscription at this point is coming out on the PlayStation 5, like, next week.
Yeah, it was
Strange Horticulture.
5
yeah,
handheld.
Which I've been playing on the deck, just came out on the Switch last week.
Oh no!
So yeah, it's you know, certainly as we move into the future and sort of console exclusivity is really just sort of a brief window. For the most part, it's going to be harder and harder to find things that live on any one console for very long. Yeah, so I don't know. I'm not sure. Time will tell, I guess.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see how it actually holds up playing something like Elden Ring. Because, you can't really get that in handheld at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, I'm curious. I would like to sort of try something like that, but I don't want to spend $60 on a game like Elden Ring. So that's, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the thing is. Maybe maybe one of those Just Cause games, because that's a big open world game with a lot of stuff going on, explosions and driving vehicles and things like that. So maybe I should play Just Cause. Yeah.
I was going to say, maybe that's a good way to check it out. Just kind of get used to the idea of playing a game like that in a handheld. Like maybe you want to get into one of the old Saints Row games in bed or something. It's a good way to wind down. Just play a Grand Theft Auto game.
There's that new Saints Row in a couple of weeks. I have it pre-ordered on the PlayStation, but I don't know. There's a part of me that's sort of like, maybe that would be fun on the deck.
Yeah. See, there you go.
But then it's kind of stuck in the deck, right? I can sort of tether it to my TV, but it doesn't look great because it's not really designed to do that. So I don't know.
Oh, really? I guess it's not. I mean, from what I remember reading about it, it seems like the screen on the Steam Deck is like 720 or something.
Yeah,
like that?
It's okay. It certainly things look better on the Switch OLED, I think. I mean, I've not done a 1-to-1, but every time I power up the OLED, I have a little bit of a moment where I'm like, wow, that looks really good. And I've not felt like that with anything I've attempted to play on the Steam Deck. But then, once you tether it to your screen? TV, you have to go through a USB-C hub and all that other stuff. It's still just 720p on your TV.
Ooh.
Which, and a big screen is ugly.
Looks probably a little blurry. Yeah, it's kind of weird. Even with like Strange Horticulture?
I'm not sure. I mean, that's obviously not an open world adventure game, so I imagine it probably looks super serviceable on a television, but I've not attempted it. Yeah.
Okay.
You also have to buy a USB-C dock to achieve it, and I've not done. I'm not going to spend any more money on this thing until I'm sure I need it in my life.
Yeah, I've heard the docked performance wasn't exactly mind blowing. So maybe you're better off just testing it in handheld for the time being.
I mean, the cool thing about it is that Valve is, despite their track record, clearly not going to let this thing die in the near future. It has been patched at least 5 times over the 2 weeks that I've had it. I feel like every time I turn on the deck, it's like, we have a new version available. And the most recent version improved dock performance. So yeah, there are a team of engineers at Valve who are working very, very hard on sort of optimizing the experience here. I just read a headline today that there are now 5,000 games that are deck verified, which means they run without sort of significant problems and things like that. So yeah, it'll continue to improve as more and more people get them in their hands, and Valve continues to chip away at some of the rough edges, I think.
Yeah. Oh man, real missed opportunity for an all Steam Deck backlog attack.
I was thinking that, but then I was like, 1, battery life, excuse me, 2, as excited as I was to sort of buy some of these games on the cheap in the past, I'm not dying to play them right now.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, you have to keep me posted, see how it goes.
Yeah, definitely.
I wasn't really like chomping at the bit to buy one of these things, but also I just can play stuff on my desktop if I want to play something on Steam.
Yeah, I'm a reluctant PC gamer. I don't have a lot of patience for some of the friction that I encounter. I feel like once a year, you and I try to play something on Steam together for Extra Life, and it inevitably doesn't work or requires a patch. And I sit there twiddling my thumbs or playing Animal Crossing on my Switch while you Google what the solution is.
Sure.
So,
although in those scenarios, it's always just some super weird game that we're trying to play.
True.
It seems like
that's true. Yeah. Undoubtedly, I would say like Fortnite works the first time you play it on a computer every time.
Sure. Oh, you play Fortnite on this yet?
No, oddly enough, Fortnite is not deck verified because it has anti-cheat software that doesn't work with Linux. So I imagine somebody's working very hard on trying to figure out how to make Fortnite run on the deck, but for now it doesn't. Which is weird because like my TV plays Fortnite, my refrigerator plays Fortnite. Yeah, but my Steam Deck doesn't.
Yeah, well,
not that I'm dying to play Fortnite, but you get my point.
Sure. I mean, it'd be a nice sort of control to just see how things run.
Right, big dumb open world game, lots of players. That Multiversus, the game where you can play Scooby-Doo fighting Batman.
Oh yeah, you can play that one.
That is playable on the deck, and it's free to play. So I'm like, maybe that'd be the one.
Oh,
maybe I should check.
I heard that's pretty good.
I've heard good things about it as well. Yeah, there seems to be a fair amount of enthusiasm for it, as weird as that proposition is.
Play as LeBron James, just like you always wanted.
I'm like, Rick and Morty's coming to it. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do want to talk about Strange Horticulture a little bit because I'm quite hooked on it. It's a very fun little game. Would definitely recommend. As I mentioned, you run a spooky, kind of creepy flower shop in Victorian England. And you have flowers in pots growing on shelves. Visitors will come into your shop and they'll need help with something in their life. They'll need I feel like people are talking about me behind my back. Is there a flower I can use that will help me hear what they say about me?
What?
So there's a weird little element of like supernatural to this, obviously. So you do some research. You have ancient tomes and texts about flowers. You have your shelves full of flowers that you can sort of take down off the shelf and analyze and view up close. And people will give you like, oh, hey, I was, I wandered off a mysterious path in this place, and I found a field of unusual flowers growing that I'd never seen before. So you could explore and go find those flowers and pick them, bring them back to your shop and study them and stuff like that. Oh. So it's a little bit of a puzzle game. You're trying to sort of match up the flower and the solution with the person who has some sort of little problem in their life. But as you go further and further into it, you start to get a lot more flowers on your shelves. Your book full of like interesting facts about mysterious flowers gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's easier for you to make mistakes. And sometimes if you give somebody the wrong flower, it will kill them. So, with great power comes great responsibility. So you have to do your research and make sure you're not just going with the first plant that you find that is red with yellow stripes on it.
Okay, so wait a minute.
Red stripes.
What are people doing with these flowers? Are they like eating them, or like how are they killing people?
Yeah, a lot of them end up being sort of ingested. A lot of them are like,
okay.
I forget what some of the examples are. But some of them you can sort of create, you give to people and they create like a healing poultice with, or
I see.
Things like that. So, a lot of the flowers they're not for like intended to be for like a display in somebody's house. There is some utility that people are trying to sort of achieve.
Okay, I see. So I had a whole different picture of this game. I just thought you were working in a flower shop. And now you're like more of a potion shop.
You're a bit, it's a bit of an apothecary kind of thing.
There you go.
Yeah,
exactly.
So it's really cool. And as you continue to run your shop and as you continue to explore and your collection of flowers and your ancient texts grow and grow, you'll get repeat visitors. You'll get visitors who will talk about interesting, I think there's a coven of witches operating out in the woods. And then a mysterious cloaked figure will come into the shop and et cetera, et cetera. So you get like a bigger mystery that starts to evolve. So you're kind of solving puzzles and collecting interesting flowers and doing research. And you have all these tools for research where you can get a magnifying glass and look at them up close and stuff like that. You have a shop cat who will occasionally pop up on the table and you can pet it. for no reason other than people like to pet things in video games.
Mm-hmm. Well, you got to check the box on that. Can you pet? Oh no, that's a dog. Can you pet the dog?
Can you pet the dog?
So I don't know.
There's no dog in this game that I'm aware of, but you can in fact pet the cat. But I'm super into the mystery, like this whole little creepy corner of England now that I've sort of explored different pieces of, and I know this little interesting cast of characters, and everybody seems to have kind of ulterior motives and interesting things they're trying to achieve, and it's a bit of a choose your own adventure too. You can kind of like, align yourself with good or for evil and stuff like that. It's just it's very interesting. It's much more than it sort of appears to be on the tin.
Does it feel like there's a central storyline taking shape?
Very much so. Yeah, it's it's been a pleasure to sort of see some of these pieces kind of come together and to make little connections and stuff. It doesn't really spoon feed you anything. You can fail quite miserably if you screw up. You have to go through some kind of machinations to be able to get to your sort of a restart point in the game, a checkpoint essentially. You can fail outright if you screw up horribly enough. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think you get good enough and patient enough with it. It's not a game that you play super fast. It's very methodical, but the good news is like there's no ticking clocks or anything like that. A person will come into the shop and say, "Hey, I'm looking for a potion for this." And then you can take hours and hours of doing your research if you want to, if you're that type of video game player. And they never get angry and storm off or get tired of waiting or anything like that. Okay. You could, yeah. I've left in the middle of transactions before, like leave the shop entirely to go explore out in an alley and pick a flower. Yeah. And they don't ever seem to notice. They don't get angry when you come back and be like, I've been standing here for an hour. So yeah, it's obviously quite a bit of suspension of disbelief, but it's just an oddly delightful and creepy little video game that has a lot of fun layers to it that I'm really enjoying.
Just imagine them putting out the little, be back at 3:00 sign on the door.
Back in 3 minutes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
5 days later.
Right. So yeah, this is on Steam. I've been playing it on the Steam Deck, like I said, but just last week it came out on the Switch. It runs fine on the Steam Deck. I have some trouble with the text, but mostly because I am quite blind. And I've had to use the little zoom feature on the Steam Deck to be able to zoom in to read some of my ancient texts about mysterious flowers. Yeah. But that works fine as well. I suspect on the Switch, which also sort of is susceptible sometimes to video games with tiny texts, they've worked out some sort of solution to help you get through some of that stuff.
Well, the Steam Deck just has like a native zoom feature?
It does, yeah.
Oh. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. It's built right into the deck. So that is Strange Horticulture.
That sounds cool, actually. I was picturing it as like, what was that game like Reciteer, or you talked about this Moonlighter recently.
Oh, yeah.
Where you're just sort of doing the day-to-day operations, just like running a shop. But sounds like, those have a very strict like day-night cycle. People come in at certain times and you have to run your business. Yeah. But I like the idea that this seems a little lower pressure, because that's always one of the first things that gets me, if they're just like, you have just a few hours left in the day to accomplish everything, and just like, going back to bed. Somebody else can take care of this. Yeah. There are some stakes in Moonlighter that can be a little stressful. Sort of setting right prices, and it's more of like a shopkeeper simulator. Yeah. And you can run a shop poorly in that game and kind of fail out of it. There doesn't seem to be a way in Strange Horticulture to like be a bad shopkeeper. Mm-hmm. That's not really what the game is about. The game is about, sort of the mystery that unfolds as you dig deeper into this mysterious collection of flowers. Oh, interesting. Yeah. All right. Well, I seem like I'm accumulating more and more of these games where you just mix potions, so I'll just throw this on there as well.
Yeah. I it's funny that you mentioned that, because I just read about a video game coming out in September called Potions Permit.
Yeah, no, that's on there.
Where you basically are an apothecariist person. So I don't know if that's a word. What's the word for a person who runs an apothecarium?
I don't know.
A pharmacist.
Pharmacist. Maybe you'll find out when you play Potion Permit.
Yeah. But that is that's definitely on my list for this fall as well. That looks like fun.
is the person not the person is also an apothecary? That's only the building.
I think the building is an apothecarium. Maybe the person is
Apothecarium.
an apothecary.
Oh, the building is apothecarium. So I've heard. I don't know which one it is now. Whatever. We'll get this sorted out.
Yep. Tune in next week.
Excellent. Well, that sounds cool. I am strangely intrigued. And it takes place in England, not some weird fictionalized version of it. I mean, not that this actually happened in England, but, you know.
I don't know England like street to street or anything like that, so I can't verify that the map syncs up to like jolly old England. It's yeah, I think the characters actually, in fact, say that it is in England, and everybody has a British accent. So
yeah, okay. Interesting.
Yep. You've been playing Live Alive, and not just the demo this time.
Yes, the full thing came out.
Cool.
After 30 years, I can play this game. Actually, I forgot when the original Super Famicom version came out, but yeah, we talked a little bit about this a few weeks ago when the demo came out, but essentially this is like one of the lost Squaresoft RPGs from the 90s that never got an English release, or just a release anywhere outside of Japan, for that matter. But it is here now, and it's gotten the whole HD 2D makeover.
Yeah.
And we both played the demo. That's why we were talking about it, and both seem to enjoy it, I think.
Yeah. I'm intrigued by it. The concept, which I assume you will re-explain for our listeners, definitely appeals to me, and I'm curious to sort of see, how all of that stuff comes together.
Yeah. So, like you're saying, it has a very weird sort of structure to it, in that it is almost like 7 tiny RPGs rolled into one. Where you get, you start it up and you get this character select screen with 7 characters on it. And each character comes from their own sort of time period, ranging from the earliest as like a prehistory, where you play as like a little caveman or whatever. I don't know what the PC term for caveman is these days, but one of those guys. All the way off into the distant future, where you play as a little robot, and then they've got all sorts of variety in between. And then supposedly, I believe, as you finish each scenario, they come together in some kind of way, which I have still not looked up because I don't want to spoil this thing for myself.
Yeah.
But I believe there's some sort of conclusion. And I think I've heard there's actually additional content they've created for this version specifically. So once I get through it, I will be sure to just start reading up on what exactly has changed since the original release. But really cool premise, cool structure. And I really enjoyed the demo, so I thought I'm finally going to just go in on this thing and play the full game.
And I'll say, just from playing the demo and seeing trailers and stuff like that, very cool presentation.
Yeah.
Are
you talking about just the HD 2D kind of
the HD 2D thing? But what a cool way to sort of take a cool kind of pixely graphics that can look dated sometimes, if not done well, and kind of update them in a way that still looks fresh and still looks exciting, and it's easy to sort of appreciate good sprite work in a video game. But to take a game that is 30-ish years old, right, and sort of drag it into a modern console and make it look pretty in HD, I think is a skill, is a talent, absolutely.
Yeah. I'll second that. It looks incredible. I think it's by far the best of these sort of HD 2D games that have come out over the last few years. And I actually went back and I was watching a YouTube video where somebody had spliced together footage from the original version, and then it would fade into the new version. And the old version, it looks decent for a Super Nintendo sort of 16-bit game. Nothing mind-blowing. It's not like Final Fantasy or Chrono Trigger or anything. But just seeing how the art had evolved from this original version into the new one, it really was very striking. It's just oh wow, imagine having played the original and seeing it just transformed into this new thing that everybody is getting to experience now. That must be incredible.
Cool.
So anyway, I have to say it was a little touch and go for a while starting this up. I was worried that I may have made a mistake playing this game, but I'll get into it. But rest assured, I'm now just completely in love with this thing. It's really good. It's they did such a good job with this. Where to even begin? I was thinking, since it's broken down into these different chapters, I thought, maybe we'll just come back here every week and talk about a different chapter of this game. But I'll just sort of get into what I've gone through so far.
Yeah. And I'll ask, I know you can kind of consume them in any order you want. You're not sort of obligated to play in any particular order or to start with a certain character. Who did you start with and how did you decide?
Okay, so interesting. So in the demo, you could play 3 scenarios. You could play the beginning hour of 3 scenarios anyway. You could play as this monk in ancient China or this ninja infiltrating a castle in sort of the late Edo period in Japan, or you could play as the robot from the future. And I played through both the monk and the robot storyline in the demo. I attempted the ninja storyline, but it's very stealth based, and I felt like I wasn't getting it. Just wasn't doing it correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So I sort of put that aside and decided, when the full thing comes out, maybe I will just restart with that one. Because with the full game, you can load in your demo progress. And that's what I did. So I think it remembers that I finished the monk and the robot intro storylines. And with the ninja, I thought, okay, I'm going to give this another shot, but I'm just going to restart it from the beginning, which it'll let you do at any point, which is kind of interesting. So I did that, and I was just grateful to do that because I had sort of forgotten the setup, the little briefing you get at the start of that mission. And they also make a point that you can approach the mission, the stealth mission, however you want. You could just go in and try and be undetected and not kill anybody, or you can just go nuts and murder everybody who you come across as you make your way to your ultimate goal. And in the demo, I feel like I was getting a little too hung up on just trying to go all stealth. And since playing that, I've heard that it's actually quite difficult to do that on your first try because you basically have to do a lot of things that you don't know you have to do the first time playing through this, if that makes sense. So I thought, okay, maybe I will end up with a bit of a body count here. So I went into it, and if you remember, I also had this weird reaction to the demo in that all the battles in it are kind of unusual. First of all, the way the battles work is cool in that they are this kind of a Final Fantasy turn-based battle, but they take place on this grid. So all of your attacks have basically a sort of an effective area on this grid, and a lot of the time you have to reposition your characters around in order to get yourself into a position where you can actually hit enemies with your attacks. So that's interesting. But the demo was weird in that when you did battles as the monk, you were just you were already this grand master of kung fu or whatever. So none of the battles presented any challenge. He was just too strong for everybody. And then the robot didn't fight anything. And the ninja, I was trying to avoid all the fights, so I didn't fight anything as the ninja either. And I just thought, I don't feel like I got a great sense of how difficult the battles are supposed to be in this game. So I had this sneaking suspicion in the back of my head, what if this just turns out to be a complete disaster? What if, this was a game that came out in the mid-90s, games had much different standards back then. What if this full game comes out and it is just impossible? So I had that very much in the front of my mind going into this ninja storyline again and trying to take out some of these guards because they're, just too difficult to sneak around. And I have to say, some of the battles as the ninja are quite difficult. And I don't know if that's just because, at first I just chalked it up to you're sneaking in as this ninja. Maybe you're supposed to be sort of underpowered compared to all the guards you're running into. So maybe you're supposed to just be running away and trying to be stealthy. But there are a few encounters later that feel like less avoidable sort of boss encounters. And I was just getting destroyed in all of these. And in fact, it was just the same one over and over again.
Oh, no.
And I just thought, well, it's turning into sort of a Saga Frontier scenario where it's just this doesn't seem like it's supposed to be winnable. Or on some level, it felt like not really a traditional JRPG battle, almost like a puzzle game where I was thinking, okay, well, maybe if I use this specific attack on this one enemy. I can take him out before all the other enemies can react. It felt like there was a very particular order you were supposed to approach these things in. But I didn't know what was going on. I just thought, I don't know what I've stumbled into with this game. I thought I was having a good time as long as through the demo. But I think I figured it out, and my theory is that at one point in this ninja storyline, it's just minor spoilers, you run into this jail in the castle where they're keeping these other prisoners. Or the other prisoners. I'm not saying if you got thrown in jail or not. But it seems to me like you have the option to free some of them using like keys you've collected or through some other means. And there was just so much stuff going on in this scenario at this point that I just couldn't deal with it. I was like, there are like a bunch of prisoners here. They all seem like they've all got their own thing going on. I don't know which ones I should be freeing, how that's going to affect the mission. I'm just not going to think about this at all. I'm just going to leave them all in here. So I think what you're supposed to do is free some of them and they join your party. And that makes things considerably easier. Because eventually another character does join you, and he has a bunch of attacks that you can use to support your main guy. And I thought this was very interesting. This fit in very well with the sort of tactical approach to combat, is that he had a few attacks that will like push the enemy's turn back. So if they're in the middle of charging up some big attack, you can just cancel it, and then they won't do it. Oh. So I just thought, I wish this guy had shown up earlier. If only it had occurred to me that I was supposed to free some of those guys. But anyway, so despite that, I managed to get through that chapter and move on to the next stuff. And so what I sort of realized is that each of these chapters, I keep expecting at some point for it to just turn into a very traditional sort of JRPG loop where it's like, you start out in a town, then you go out to the field and there are random encounters and you fight monsters and level up. And it has not really been that at all in the scenarios that I played. In fact, it feels more like this is just a collection of not like mini JRPGs, which is sort of what I was expecting, but it feels like they took the like sort of showcase set piece from other JRPGs, and that's the entirety of the chapter you played. So like, imagine you're playing like some generic other RPG, and in the middle of it, there's just a stealth section for some reason. Like, they just took that out, and that became the ninja section in Live Alive, or Live Alive, or whatever this thing is. Which is weird, because I'm still expecting, like, okay, so when do I just get to play some JRPG? When do I get to, like, do the battles and everything? And so far, it has just been, like, weird set piece, one after another. But it's fine, like, it's cool, because every time you hop over to another character, you're just doing something else different and weird. It's not like you're just playing, a Wild West RPG 1 minute and then, a futuristic one the next. It's like you're doing something kind of unique to each scenario whenever you change characters.
Oh, okay.
Which is cool. So it's really like mixes it up because, like you were saying, you can swap characters at, it feels like almost any point. You can save pretty much any time you're not in a fight and just go back to the character select screen. In fact, I actually had to, I sort of wish it would give you more obvious places where it would just say like, hey, maybe take a break here and, I don't know, try out another character for a little while, because I ended up
be a cowboy for a little while. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I ended up playing that whole ninja scenario, just like start to finish. Because first of all, it's like only a few hours long. So I was just kind of into it. But then it also didn't occur to me that like, oh yeah, well, so none of these are going to be especially long, it feels like, because the entire game is maybe 20 hours from what I've heard. So after I finished the ninja thing, I sort of hopped around because there are a few other interesting scenarios. I think I'm going to save the monk and the robot for the end, because I sort of got the intro to those already.
Right.
I hopped into a few others. One I especially like is, so there's this, I know you're interested in the Wild West one, because you mentioned that was unusual before. The Wild West one is excellent.
Cool.
It is, I hope this is not giving too much away, but you basically end up in this little like frontier town, and you have to rally the villagers into setting up all these traps before the outlaws show up and attack the town. I just thought, well, this is, if you're going to do one sort of Wild West scenario in an RPG, like this is the one, right? Because it's just like assigning all the villagers to these different jobs and, going through all the the buildings in town to gather supplies and everything. You just have this little standoff, and depending on how well you set up traps at the beginning, like a certain number of outlaws will be eliminated. So that was super fun. What I've had the most fun with so far, this is kind of surprising, is that the present day scenario, you play as this martial artist who is basically entering the Street Fighter tournament, or just like any fighting game tournament, because he wants to be the best martial artist in the world or whatever. But the way this is presented is you get a little bit of this guy's backstory, and then it just turns into a fighting game, essentially, where you get this, it's not really a character select screen, but you get, the huge verses in the middle of the screen. You get to select which opponent you want to fight next. And then it goes through the whole thing. You have like the pre-fight dialogue where the other guy you're going to fight just taunts you for a while. And then you face off in, a live-a-live typical battle where it's just you and the other guy on a grid. But it's all in the sort of veneer of this fighting tournament. Plus, the soundtrack is by Yoko Shimomura, who was the composer on Street Fighter 2, so it just feels incredibly authentic the whole time you're playing this. It's amazing. And I feel like I'm really curious to see what this looked like on the Super Famicom or whenever this first came out, but the presentation in this version is so good, just from the versus screen to the actual tournament. And then, after you eventually beat the guy, you get kicked back off to the versus screen. You can pick somebody else. But it's so good. It's just so much fun. And I didn't want to burn through that entire scenario at once. So what I've been doing is I'll do like 1 or 2 fights in between the other scenarios, and then I'll hop around. So it's always fun to come back to that guy, just like do the next round in the tournament as he makes his way up the roster. It's really good.
And do you find those encounters to be sort of manageable, or has the difficulty level sort of maintained?
Oh, it's so much more manageable. Yeah, the combat of this is really no problem.
Okay.
It was just I feel like I made that ninja scenario unreasonably difficult just because I didn't pick
self-inflicted harm, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I feel like the sort of final showdown in the Wild West could be very difficult if you just do a very bad job of setting up traps and have to fight the entire gang at the end. But it does it very clearly kind of breaks the fourth wall a little bit and says like, make sure you create an extra save in case it doesn't go very well. So it's sort of got your back.
Cool.
But that's kind of been the experience so far, is just jumping from one totally weird scenario to the next, whether it's doing the stealth mission or just setting up these weird traps or playing a JRPG take on a fighting game. I'm really curious what's next. I'm playing through the prehistory chapter right now, which was maybe the one I was most intrigued about, because one of the hooks is that there's no dialogue, because there's they don't have an established language. So that's unusual. But as an entire package, at least from what I've played so far, it really feels like just 7 different weird ideas they had for like set pieces in a larger JRPG.
Right.
That have come together surprisingly well so far. And I've really enjoyed how they end up wrapping up. Each one is very brief, like no longer than a few hours long. But they managed to get very introspective by the end of it. Like the ninja chapter, he sort of muses about the new era that Japan is heading into at the end. And the Wild West is just sort of a very classic Wild West setup where he rides off into the sunset. So it's just been a great sort of like little collection of vignettes. Really different than anything else that was going on in JRPGs at the time. And like even now, I have a difficult time thinking of other games that are similar to this. It reminds me a bit of 13 Sentinels, because you would switch between different storylines and characters in that game.
Mm-hmm.
But that's really the only other thing I can think of.
Cool.
Yeah, so I'm having a really good time with it. I'm kind of relieved that it didn't turn out to just be this like insufferable JRPG that everybody was looking back on with rose-colored glasses. But surprise, surprise, it's actually really fun.
I got a little nervous when you started saying that. What if this other stuff, and then it was really difficult, and I was like, oh, have I made a mistake? Because I bought this sight unseen. Like I liked the demo. Everybody seemed to be really into it. I listened to the Nintendo, what is it? NVC, Nintendo Voice Chat podcast. It's IGN's Nintendo podcast, basically. And they spent an entire hour gushing about this game. And I was like, all right, I got to play this.
Yeah.
And then here you were about to sort of rain on my parade. And then it turns out you really liked it. So good. I'm excited.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see if there are any more hiccups along the way, but
Sure.
I'm optimistic. It's not the easiest game, but it was definitely like that. My situation with the ninja scenario was just me not understanding what I was supposed to do. At least that's my theory. Interestingly, it doesn't seem to have any sort of like, I don't know what you even call these, like cheats, I guess. Like in recent remasters, I'm thinking of like the when they ported Final Fantasy VII to the Switch, they just added in like God mode or like double speed to get through different sections, to kind of improve accessibility a little bit. Like if you're just having a tough time with a boss, you can just make yourself invincible and have access to all the most powerful attacks as much as you want.
The things that sort of get bucketed under quality of life enhancements these days.
Sure. Yeah, and so there doesn't seem to be any of that in this, or at least not that I've noticed. But so far it seems like it's not really in desperate need of that. A lot of the time, like I feel like even in that ninja chapter, I probably could have just gone back and like taken out a few more guards to level up my guys some more. But also I could have just freed a bunch of those guys from the jail. They might have been able to help me out. Might go through that one yet one more time, in fact, just to see what could have gone differently.
Do you get a sense that you're sort of crafting a specific story? Are you making sort of decisions that will have some sort of outcome at the end, or is it sort of fairly linear?
I don't know.
I'm not
There's
sure
a
if you
lot
can
of
answer that.
going on.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
I'm not
it's
sure if you can answer that.
you're mostly playing through the same scenario every time.
Gotcha. Okay.
I've heard, I did see somebody mention that like if you make it through the ninja scenario without killing anyone, you get some amazing weapon as a reward or something like that. So it feels like there is opportunity for you to be smart about things and sort of like uncover secrets as you play through these multiple times. But it's not like, or at least at this point, it doesn't seem like I'm going to end up getting ending A versus somebody else gets ending B or something like that.
Sure. The bad ending.
Yeah. But, I mean, who knows? That could still be on the table. I have no idea how this game wraps up that could be as equally mind-blowing.
Right. And I didn't expect you to spoil the end. I just, some games can be a little heavy-handed about those things. And
Sure.
I always think back to the Telltale games that were like, David will remember this later. I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
Great.
It doesn't seem like a lot of that is happening in this.
Well, good. That's smart.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm like, I don't want to say I'm relieved because it just seems like I was worried about this thing being terrible the whole time, but it has just been so fun playing, this lost JRPG after 25, 30 years and have it actually be super good. It's
Right.
really fun.
Well, good. I mean, you've had, years, and I just learned that this thing existed 6 months ago, but you've waited quite a long time to play Live Alive in some way or another. So I'm glad you're enjoying it. That's exciting.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like I was actively like why won't they give us this game? I just had kind of written it off because by the time I learned about it, it was probably it'd been out for a few years. It just seemed like it was never going to happen. So just a huge surprise that everybody gets to play it now, and everybody loves it apparently. So that's great, super exciting.
Cool. Yeah. Well, excellent. I look forward to playing it during my Backlog Attack in 2023.
Oh man, I think it's like each one of these scenarios is brisk enough that you can just put in an hour or two here and there.
Yeah.
Or in the in case of the Street Fighter guy, you just do 20 minutes, put it down, do the next fight later on.
Yeah, I have a little sort of vacation, a little like sitting by the pool doing a whole lot of nothing vacation coming up in September, and I feel like this will be my September vacation game.
Yeah. Sounds like a good thing for that.
Cool. All right, well let's wrap this thing up. If you need any more video game hangover in your brain, you should follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/VGHangover. And you can always get show notes and links and tell us what you thought about this episode at VGHangover.com.
Probably.
Asterisk in the corner.
Maybe.
Yeah, presuming it still works. Yeah. We would love for you to join us on Discord. You can get a link to that at VGHangover.com.
Maybe.
Yep. Yeah, God willing.
Oh God, where's the Discord? Just everybody follow us on Twitter. We'll be there from now on.
That's the way to do it. Yep. And please subscribe, rate, and review us on your podcasting app of choice. And help us out. Maybe tell your friends about the show. We'll take that.
You know, any of your friends working in IT, that would be, and they're also looking for a podcast, especially tell them about us. We want to give special thanks to Saria Lemus this week for our amazing intro and outro music. If you want to hear more of her work, you can go to pettypanol.bandcamp.com. That's a website that certainly works. And download the rest of her catalog. That would be great.
Awesome. We'll be back next week. Until then, this is Randy Dickinson.
This is DJ Ross.
Thanks so much for listening to Video Game Hangover. Goodbye.
Good night. Nailed it. First try.
Podcasting professionals.